Hello everybody, I am Ruminus,
And I'm August.
and we are here to go over the God of War series. We're going to start with God of War 1, the original, back from 2005. And we are going to talk about not necessarily the story, but necessarily Kratos' character as he develops, changes, or regresses throughout the series as a whole. We're only going to look at the main games that launched on the consoles. There were a couple other games that launched on mobile and also on PSP or PS Vita. We're going to ignore those a little bit. We'll reference them, but most of the time, we're only going to talk about the games that, or for God of War 1, 2, 3, God of War 4, which is 2018 version, and then also Ragnarok at the end. This video will only talk about God of War 1 in its entirety, meaning we are not going to reference anything that happens in God of War 2, 3, 4, whatever. We're only going to look at God of War 1 as a whole.
Now there is no hope.
And Kratos cast himself from the highest mountain in all of Greece. After 10 years of suffering, 10 years of endless nightmares, it would finally come to an end. Death would be his escape from madness. But it had not always been this way. Kratos had once been a champion of the gods.
And in God of War 1, as we see here, his character begins in medias res, which is a literary term which means in the middle of things. Basically, it doesn't start at the beginning of the story, but somewhere in the middle. And so here we see that he is truly just not having it. Something has gone awry in his life that he has decided it's not worth it anymore. The gods have abandoned him. He's done everything he can, and he decides to end it once and for all. And the part of the reason that I want to talk about this is because I, as a young man who grew up with these games, want to talk about how it either referenced, shaped, or just kind of influenced my masculinity. Because Kratos is a man who punched good, and that's pretty much it. That's generally what he is. He's an angry man who punched good. And if you're a very young man growing up in the era that I did, that is essentially what we were told to be. And not every part of the world, not every part of culture, not every part of the United States even had that kind of reflection, but that is essentially what I was told to be. It was strong, capable, not to let anybody drag you down, and therefore Kratos was the epitome of that. However, Kratos is also the epitome of the downfall, the pros and cons of that kind of masculinity, that kind of culture. And at the end of this, we can see he's not having a good time. The story itself starts in medias res, at which point it goes back in time to where he was a champion of the gods, fighting this Hydra, and then we see him do this terrible act. Now, some people might call him an anti-hero, meaning that he is just kind of a hero that does things by unusual means.
Yeah, I would call him an anti-hero, I guess. He's not an evil person, although he does some awful things. He does regret them. He doesn't revel in, evil or even awful behavior, except for the waging war part. I would say he's an anti-hero type character.
As we continue the story, we go through, we get this key, basically kill the man in the process, open the door, everybody's already dead inside, so essentially his actions were in vain. While his intentions may not have been, his actions didn't succeed to what the gods intended him to be. And in the next scene, we see him yelling at Athena, telling him when his penance will be done.
10 years, Athena. I have faithfully served the gods for 10 years. When will you relieve me of these nightmares?
We request one final task of you, Kratos. Your greatest challenge awaits in Athens, where even now my brother Ares lays siege as we speak. Athens is on the verge of destruction. It is the will of Ares my great city fall. Zeus has forbidden the gods from waging war on each other. That is why it must be you, Kratos.
You see, he served the gods for 10 years. He's trying to overcome something that he's done in his past. Now, there's two things to keep in mind. They play on two things, a Greek tragedy and the original story of Hercules. So the original story of Hercules is that Hercules is overcome with fits of rage, kills his wife and child in the process, He kills some other people in the process as well, and in doing so, he is truly remorseful. Hercules in Greek and Roman mythology is truly remorseful and does all these feats of just absolute insanity, killing beasts that cannot be killed, climbing mountains that cannot be climbed by mortals, and defeating even things like Cerberus, a divine beast that is favored by a god, and does so because he truly wants to either be redeemed or die trying. That's what he wants to do. And the other part is a true Greek tragedy. Kratos is a true Greek tragedy, much like Oedipus Rex or anybody similar, where they are characterized by a singular character flaw. Usually that's hubris, but for Kratos in particular is anger, it is aggression, it is greed, and it is also a bit of hubris. And in doing so, he does things that harm himself, but not realizing it up until the point that it causes him great harm. But he never overcomes that, and when he tries to be better than that, he doesn't fix the problem at its root. He tries to change certain actions so that he can kind of circumvent that while still being him. That is what a Greek tragedy is. We see that he's yelling at Athena, and they tell him specifically, you will be forgiven if you do this task that is absolutely insane, which is to kill a god. They send him on this giant quest to bring back Pandora's box, use Pandora's box to kill Ares, and that's the whole game, really. Usually once every 2 to 3 hours you'll get a piece of the story, which comes up every so often. So as we go through the story, we realize that he was a general in the Spartan army, he was relentless, he didn't care, he killed whoever he wanted, and at a certain point, he lost. And when he lost, he calls out to Ares.
The sky split apart, and the god of war stepped through. Descending from Olympus, he saw the makings of a god in a mere mortal. Ares would save Kratos. He would turn him into the perfect warrior, his servant on Earth. Only a simple pledge of loyalty was required.
My life is yours, Ares. From this day, I shall carry forth your will.
And his fate was sealed. As promised, Ares rescued his new disciple, bringing forth the power of a god, destroying those who would slaughter Kratos and his men. As for Kratos, no mere sword and shield would befit the newest servant of the god of war. The blades of chaos, forged in the foulest depths of Hades. Once attached, the chains remained so, chained and seared to the flesh, a part of the bearer's body, a permanent reminder of Kratos' pledge. In return, ultimate power. The rage of Ares exploded from within. But soon, he would learn the true cost of such power. A cost too high even for Kratos to pay.
Basically, Ares and Kratos become a pair. Kratos kills in the name of Ares, seemingly without mercy or care, and up until the point where he, similar to Hercules, kills his wife and child and is ultimately remorseful. And this is where I want to ask Dion the same thing. I, as a very young man who was taught in a very aggressive type of culture that violence and aggression is okay, is the way of things, I had a similar revelation where I realized it wasn't useful. There were times where mercy and peace and compassion were the more useful thing. But it wasn't until I had come to Jesus moment. I had a moment where I was like, this wasn't okay. What I did was not okay. Now, for Kratos, it was far worse. But for me, it was a similar event. And I want to ask you, Dion, what was your opinion of masculinity and what did being a man mean to you when you were younger?
Just personally, not in reference to the game?
Not in reference to the game, just you personally.
I mean, yeah, I guess I would say that as a young boy, teenager, I didn't really think about it, but you grow up learning the things that you're allowed to do as a boy, as a male, and it's like not crying, it's being tough, it's taking things on the chin, it's very machismo, very macho, very much. You have only certain you're only taught to access certain emotions, and they're not the soft emotions. It's not sadness. It's not joy, laughter, folly. You're taught that you can access anger. You're taught you can access. You don't learn like a very smooth range of useful emotions or even emotional intelligence.
I personally would classify that as like anger, wrath, fury, those type of emotions. Nonchalance, just kind of like, I don't care, whatever.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I was big into nonchalance. I loved being nonchalant. I thought it was the coolest thing. My grandma hated it. She was just, especially as I grew up to be a teenager, she really just hated my nonchalant behavior. And I thought that was a cool thing to do. And what's better than being cool when you're a teenager, you know?
I don't give a shit about anything. What's up, man?
So yeah, so I was actually, I would say that I was pretty reserved, pretty cut off from my emotions from the time that I was a teenager onward. And I thought that was ultimately going to be easier than. I even was shut off from my anger a lot of the time because for me personally, especially as a black man in the U.S., I'm not even allowed really access to that, or else I'm seen as dangerous, which is then more dangerous for me. So I, from a pretty young age, simply just cut off most of my emotions, unless it was just happiness at whatever. It was just safer for me to sort of be in that mode.
And that's the reason I don't want to talk about Kratos as a character overall. And he's one of the most popular characters in video game history. Whether you played the games or not, you generally know of him. But Kratos, as we see him in the story, isn't entirely that. And if we go back to Dion and also myself, if I were to go back to myself as an older man, I would have a much more heart-to-heart with myself and saying, it is okay to cry. It's okay to admit that you're wrong. It's okay to do certain things. And when we see Kratos later on, he does say, at multiple times, you see him be sad and miserable, and like he doesn't like what he's doing. He's only doing what he's doing for the gods in this acts of rage and aggression because he wants to atone for his sins. He doesn't actually do it because he wants to. Originally he did. Originally because the Spartans trained him to be a warrior. He did, and facing failure was not something he wanted to do, so he called out to Ares, who punished him in a way that he ultimately regretted. And here we see in this scene where he recounts it and he looks at himself and he says at the very end,
By the gods, what have I become?
Now the problem that I have with this is that there's a little bit of ludonarrative dissonance in that he says that line and then 30 seconds later he literally burns a man alive because that's what the gods sacrifice. Again, if we talk about Greek and Roman mythology, the gods would never really ask for that because that's one of the huge major sins. But in the context of the game, he says, what have I become? And then immediately disregards that. And so that's one of my things of when you look at masculinity and when you look at these kind of character, do you look at it as Kratos or do you look at it as a masculinity culture? Because you have those instances. I had a lot of this when I was in middle school and I was a very, very teenager, like preteen teenager, where I had a lot of moments of clarity of like, I should stop doing this because it doesn't make sense, but then immediately overrule it because that's not what society expects of me, that's not what my parents expect of me, that's not what the school expects of me. They expect this very strong, capable, angry, just leadership type of man. And that was obviously diluted by what, like, leadership and care is not aggression, it's not power, it's not fear, it is respect. But the problem is when you're young and you don't know that, it gets diluted. And that's what happened to me.
I didn't really unlearn. I actually everything as much as possible for as often and as long as possible as just like I was non-reactionary for most things, unless it was really down like the lane of my special interest. And I just thought that was okay. I thought that made me cool. I thought that made people respect me. Like, oh man, he doesn't react to anything. He's just so cool. At a certain point, I didn't even care if he thought I was cool because I was so lost in the sauce of this mentality that I didn't care. And I was so non-caring for so long. It probably did some real deep, left some real deep mental scars on me. But it wasn't until well past college that I was like, this isn't healthy at all. And my mother's right. I'm gonna drop dead from an aneurysm one day, or I'm just gonna pop off at the wrong person one day. Just full, and it's some poor unsuspecting, you know, jackass is gonna say the wrong thing to me on the wrong day. I'm just gonna be just a little bit past my limit, and he's just gonna catch 25 years of just straight repression over what seems like the littlest thing, and he's not gonna know what he did wrong. Um, she was always super worried that. So my mom saw the writing on the wall a long time before I did. She tried to tell me like what was going on. And I mean, it definitely helped later, but yeah, for me, it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is what for me, what I thought was correct and manly and right was just being so cool under pressure, so calm, so collected, so ready to act even under like duress. That yeah, I never thought about being angry or being strong. As long as you had the situation under control, you didn't need to do a lot.
One thing I do want to point out is that Kratos often doesn't kill things unless he needs to. He is kind of reserved. He is like, there's a thing in me that, having played these games, especially as an older man, when I was younger, I was like, oh yeah, a lot of blood and gore and cool things. And also keep in mind, I'd come from the NES era, where you had Super Mario World, and it was nice and light and colorful, and it was pixel art. But then you have God of War, where it comes into 3D, and they have cinematics and stuff like that. Nowadays they don't look good, but it is a worldly difference. So it really looks cool when he's flipping through the air and he's attacking things and he's punching really, really hard. But the problem is, a lot of people seem to misrepresent a few things, is that when you look at Kratos as a whole, you see that by the gods what have I become. And you see him be morose, you see him be mad, you see him be sad about who he is himself. You see him do the things that Dion just mentioned, of like, you get to a certain point of like, that doesn't make sense. Why would I even do that anymore? It doesn't even make sense. But the problem is that it is written as a Greek tragedy, and it is a beautiful modern Greek tragedy, because Kratos shifts from, I'm going to conquer the world in the name of Sparta, I'm going to conquer the world in the name of Ares, and then he has this traumatic event, and then he says, I'm going to kill Ares in favor of my family, in favor of Sparta, in favor of myself. So he just shifts all of his emotions place by place by place, and because he also is a very young man. So here we go through basically the crux of the game. Kratos is so strong that he defeats literally death itself and comes back out of it, and he gets Pandora's box. But what he does is that he goes to Ares, and the entire time that he's fighting Ares, the god of war, he says, I'm gonna kill Ares, I'm gonna avenge my family, I'm gonna avenge myself, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. None of it does he ever take a stop, take a moment to pause and say, I'm continuing a cycle. I need to stop. I need to do this for the right reasons. Perhaps Ares does need to die. Perhaps Ares is a terrible monster that needs to die, and Kratos is the one to do it. But he doesn't do it for the right reasons. He does it for a very personal, vengeful, angry, rageful, whatever you want to call it, reason. And that is where the Greek tragedy plays in, but that's also where the masculinity plays in. Because when I was younger, that's exactly what it was. It was about keeping your place, it was about keeping your power, keeping your leadership, all things in line. But the problem is Kratos does the same thing that I did, and Dion mentioned it a little bit as he got into college. It was like, this is dumb. There's no reason to do this. Like, this doesn't achieve anything. Kratos is not who that is. He is a man who fights and is a man of Sparta, but he does it for a reason. And when there is no reason, he does it basically because he's angry, because he has no other purpose, because he doesn't know any other way, because society didn't treat him that way. And the gods don't do that either. Athena sends him on this quest. They send him on this quest that so many others have died. Zeus helps him on this quest. Hades helps him on this quest.
Greatest need. I haven't forgotten, Ares. I remember how you saved me. That night, I was trying to make you a great warrior. You succeeded.
Kratos had done the impossible. A mortal defeating a god. Ares was no more. The city had been saved and would thrive again. The same could not be said for Kratos, for as he sought to rebuild his soul with the help of the gods, the truth was revealed to him.
Athena, rid me of the memories that haunt me still.
You have done well, Kratos. Though we mourn the death of our brother, the gods are indebted to you. We promised your sins would be forgiven, and so they are. But we never promised to take away your nightmares. No man,
And when you get to the very
god
end of
could
it,
ever forget the
and you see that
terrible
he's killed
deeds you have
Ares,
done.
and he's done so, the first thing that Kratos does is realize that didn't achieve anything. His rage, his vengeance, this whole quest achieved nothing. He is still in pain. It didn't solve any of his emotional problems. And so he goes to the gods, and props to the voice actor T.C. Carson. He says it very painfully. Release me from these pains. Release me from these nightmares of my past. Much like the ancient Greek and Roman gods themselves say, we didn't promise that. We said we would forgive them. We never said that we would actually get rid of them for you. And so what does Kratos do? I wanted this to be done. I served. I did everything I was supposed to do. I did what the gods told me to do. But it didn't work. There's no other reason for me to live. Which is not correct. And I do want to point out that if you are feeling that way in any way, shape, or form, there are people, there are environments, there are people that love you, and there's ways to help you. But the problem is Kratos doesn't have that because he's never had an environment he did not live in an environment that had that whatsoever. And so he decides to take his own life. While there's only 24 minutes of actual true story in this 10 to 12 hour game, it is complex. Kratos is not just Angry Man Who Punch Good, he's Angry Man Who Punch Good because he is hiding his feelings. And it's something that I've learned as an older man, is that anger is almost entirely a subset. It is a child of another emotion. You are angry because of something else. You are angry because you're jealous. You are angry because you're sad. And for men in particular, most men are angry because they're not allowed to cry, because they're not allowed to say, I'm weak. They're not allowed to say this. So instead they turn to anger and violence because that's what we were taught to do. And Kratos does that, but there's a certain point where he realizes that violence and anger aren't going to do anything else. So he turns to depression. The gods have abandoned him. His family's no longer there. He has nothing left. And so the gods lift him up to become the new god of war, at which point the gods themselves, and again, I give credit, even if it was incidental, I can't say it was for certain, incidentally, if the creators decided to make the gods their own Greek tragedy, that is entirely what they did. They made Kratos, a man who knows nothing but war, pain, suffering, vengeance, and violence, the new god of war. Meaning that they just replaced Ares with another Ares. That's all they did, which is a Greek tragedy because the gods themselves have a character flaw of being hubris and only seeing power and control and things that they need to have.
I think that if you want to talk about the way that masculinity can be portrayed in media, and specifically in reference to God of War, I think there's some interesting things here. I think that obviously, games are part of the times, clearly, right? You got Angry Man Who Punch Good. You got like, oh, what do I need to overcome this challenge? And you don't have the power of friendship, and you don't have, the righteousness. You just have anger, and angry
and big muscle,
and really cool fiery blades, right? It's super macho, super cool. The only thing it's missing is Michael Bay explosions, right? It's just the coolest, manliest, dopest game come out of 2005, right? Like, oh my god, it doesn't get cooler than this. Like it's like a character, trope on wheels. Definitely, obviously, a product of the times. The emotional intelligence of men in this country has never been at a high don't know if there is an all-time high, but definitely you have, you know, if you're gonna market something towards young boys, like a video game. I mean, it's already a video game, right? It's already about, you know, punching and killing and stabbing and doing cool combos. They had the easy road for sure. But I guess you could say that they do say some, even inadvertently, say some interesting things about the perception of masculinity in our culture. And you touched on most of them already, being that the way to deal with your problems is with more anger, or at least the way that we, again, I think it says more about the way that our own culture perceives these things. Yeah. Rather than the way that they have to be, because not every guy's like this.
I would also like to pause you, is that as someone who was a Latin teacher, when you look at particularly the Aeneid, when you look at the Odyssey, when you look at all these ancient stories of Perseus, Theseus, all sorts of people like that, it was not uncommon for them to cry. It was not uncommon for them to seek the gods. It was not uncommon for them to say, "I can't do this." In actual ancient culture, crying in men was common. It was not deemed emasculine for that.
I mean, all of the emotions, the full range of human emotions, for most human history, have been human. They've been natural human things to feel the range of sadness, to joy, to depression, to happiness, to rage, to wrath, to fear. All of these things are literally just human, you know, emotional facets. And then we get to our day and age, this country, and it's and masculinity has been plagued with this like revision, and it's on display really, really clearly in this game, because it's not necessarily super true to any particular single Greek myth or tale, because there is no such one-dimensional character that only has this one huge problem and they don't express any other types of emotions. Like, yeah, he does express sadness a little bit, but it's really overshadowed by the fact that he immediately has a solution, and that solution is kill Ares, right? Like, he hates what he did. He does feel the regret. All right, well, now that I realize that, I'm going back to the status quo, which was I'm going to kill everything that's in my way of me getting what I want. And so I think the game does a really good job of capturing an attitude that we held in general in our society at the time, which was that this is normal and this is fun. You know, like, what if instead of just talking about it and like saying that this is how men should be, you could actually do it? And so they you know, and it plays into, you know, that escapism, because despite all of the social cues that we receive and social training that we receive to be these less than full range emotional beings, right? We don't actually have an avenue to really let out the in the way that we're taught that we should. You're not supposed to hit people. It's an assault charge. It's jail time. You know, you're supposed to pose as this big strong man that can fight anybody, that can beat anybody, and that can take care of their family, trick their family, and I got my guns, you can't take my guns away from me, and all this stuff. But you do that and you go to jail. I think the first game does a really good job of capturing like a social attitude, like a shared moment of like, this is what we want, right? This is what we are looking forward to, you know. This is what isn't this the ideal? Isn't this what we're supposed to be doing? Especially for teenagers growing up that are already like on edge from a million different things, like, you know, the hormonal explosion that you're going through. And if you don't have that emotional intelligence to be able to communicate, like, hey, I'm going through a rough time, this is confusing for me, this is frustrating for me, this is making me sad, this is making me overwhelmed, you just have angry. You just have people yelling at their parents. You just have people, you know, lashing out at inappropriate times at school and at home, and never really being able to touch base with who they are or who their support system is. I think this captures that really well. He doesn't have anyone he can go to, right? He does talk to an oracle or two. He does talk to Athena, but it's not about what I can do to change or what can help me. It's magically take this away from me, or get out of my way, or it's too late to stop me now. I'm just going to keep doing this. So like, he doesn't really have anyone that can teach him anything or help him, or that wants to help him. So what do? You just do more of the same. And hopefully it works out. And because he's the main character, it works out. I mean, now, does it work out the way he wants it to? Obviously not. But it is, I think, yeah, an interesting little snapshot of the way that we perceive like the masculine ideal. What's better than being unstoppable, right? Like, what's better than being unkillable? Like, you just take what you want. You just go where you want to go. You do what you want to do. That's the end goal. And I think the game does a good job of like sort of displaying that without preaching it to you. And I think they do a good job of setting up a character who, by and large, is the perceived masculine ideal, and then how that's not actually gonna work out.
Well, I would also like to propose or postulate something. If at any point that you think Athena, as he's about to kill himself, or Ares, as he's about to kill Ares, said, hey man, you know what? I'm gonna let this go. If you let this go, I'm gonna revive your wife and child, and you get to live the life that you want. I will leave you alone. Do you think he would have taken that and just let it go? Or do you think that he would continue on his path of vengeance?
That's a crazy what if, because the gods would never even.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the Greek gods, and if you studied
Right,
any
they would
amount of
never
Greek,
admit
Roman,
being wrong.
Mediterranean,
you know?
Mesopotamian, even just
Right. They would never admit to being wrong, but
Yeah.
if they would have offered him a chance to have his family back, do you think he would have taken it? I think if in one of those long moments where he was walking from place to place, they offered it to him, but probably not in those moments. If this was like mid Ares fight towards the end of the game, or mid any boss fight, you know, he probably would have been like, "You're a liar. You're a thief.
Yeah.
You've already taken everything from me. I don't believe you could even do this, or that you want to do this. I think you're just gonna fuck me again." But maybe in one of those low moments where he's like, as he's just like walking around killing like nobodies, if they'd approached him, you know, like Athena likes to show up as a statue all the time, maybe because he's not unreasonable. He's just quick tempered.
My thought is, when you have these moments with the game, where he has this moment of clarity of just like, rid me of the memories, do this, I just want to be done, I don't want this anymore. The whole reason he goes to kill Ares, he doesn't go to kill Ares because he actually wants to initially. He definitely wants to, but really what happens is that Athena gives him that taste. We'll give you the vengeance on Ares because we also want that. Like, we also need that right now. If Ares hadn't pissed off the gods, he wouldn't have done that. But reality, what Kratos wanted was, I either want to not remember any of this, or I want none of that to have ever happened. And so if I in my personal opinion, at any point, Ares or Athena said, hey, here's your family back, we're gonna turn back time, we're gonna resurrect them, do whatever mythical, magical bullshit do we need to. I think Kratos truly would have settled down and would have been a very different character. He would have stopped warring, he would have realized the error of his ways, he would have stopped seeking power, because he realized what power and hubris have done. But the problem is, there was nothing to stop him. The only thing that really he wanted was to get vengeance. I had all of this taken away from me, now I want to take this away from you. That's all he really wanted. He didn't really learn anything.
Yeah.
Well, I would say he didn't learn anything, he just emotionally wasn't intelligent enough to stop the cycle of problems.
Yeah.
Well, that is it for the encapsulation of God of War 1. Kratos is indeed a complex character where he is angry man who punch good, but he's also very sad about what he has done and the world that he lives in. He truly understands the pain of what he has done. He is a Spartan general who lived under Ares and killed so many, some who were deserving, some who were not. And he feels bad for that, but he doesn't know how to explain himself. He doesn't know how to really express these emotions because he never really got a chance to. And so the gods don't really give him a chance to, and the only thing he cares about is getting a vengeance on the people who upset him most. And when he's done with that, he really has nothing left. A true, modern Greek tragedy. I have been Rumus, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this one, please like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified of future videos. We will continue on more with God of War 2, 3, 4, and then eventually Ragnarok itself. But until then, I am Ruminus.
I've been August.
See you guys next time.